Would like to get us started. In our second session of the Ohio State University Neislonger Center ECHO on evidence-based psychotherapy for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we'll be hearing a presentation on therapy considerations in complex contexts. And we have our very own M&M duo, Marian Duali and Manisha Katioda. Welcome to the stage to both of them. Marian is the executive director of the Global Health Education and Development, and Manisha is a clinical research coordinator here with us at OSU. The learning objectives for today's session want participants to be able to define many different contexts in which people with IDD exist. And as that acronym stands, intellectual and developmental disabilities, you'll also see that written in different ways, but that's IDD. To apply individualized and respectful communication practices, to identify and address barriers to care, and to utilize resources to enhance clinical practice. Stop my share, and I'll invite our M&M duo to the stage. In the meantime, while they're getting set up, I do encourage as they share their presentation, as questions arise for you, please feel free to engage in the chat, write your questions out if you'd like, or jot those down so that as we enter a Q&A session, we can ask our experts any questions that arise for you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Manisha and the Neisinger team for inviting me. The focus of our presentation today is just to quickly go over some of the challenges that our diverse communities, especially immigrant and refugees, face. And we cannot make anyone culturally competent today, but the goal is to identify and understand the different cultures and values of and the languages of our different communities. And we're just going to give you a nuance of what we have seen in the field and share with you a toolkit that we've been working on and get your feedback on that toolkit and also share some resources with you. Next. So IDD, people with IDD are in refugee and immigrant communities, but they're under-identified. And this is due to a lot of different things. As you know, we have increasing number of immigrant and refugee communities in the states in general, in Ohio particularly, and in Central Ohio more specifically. And those are coming from countries with different context as it relates to IDD. And many of them really do not have a background, and those that have any understanding or any experience with both I or DD disabilities are both are negative experiences what they have. So that leads to communities or families being really hesitant in getting their loved ones evaluated, and they're very hesitant in seeking therapies or other supports that are necessary for their development and their livelihood. And this is due to the fact that they don't know what it is. And those who knew in their communities, because there was no infrastructure, there was no support, they have experienced mistreatment and seeing people with IDD being locked up or not cared for or really hated or like really mistreated in their community and their families being shunned. So even though they're thousands of miles away and they're here and there are resources, they're not willing or they're not coming forward to seek those services due to the fear of what that will mean in their enclaves in their communities. And so the stigma is really huge and it's an impediment to serving seeking services. So before we even provide any services, we have to bear that in mind and we have to meet people where they're at and explain that they're in a different context. They don't know what's available. We also have to show them what's available and guide them. Next. And so some of the key barriers that we've identified in the different communities that we work with are one, you probably all know there is lack of a culturally appropriate services. There's not enough culturally informed or people in the same background from those communities that are in this space. And this is critical because when someone understands your background and they can relate to you, they have an easier way, as you know, of explaining things. And there's also a level of trust that is in there that's necessary for advocating and explaining things to these different communities. Language barrier is another issue, and although there's access to interpretation, for most cases, there's not enough expert-specific interpretation and translation. You will see someone that has might be high school education or even some college education, but that is doing medical interpretation, that's doing social service interpretation, and the schools and the courts and everything. And so when someone does that and they don't focus in any specific area, they can only provide superficial and higher levels explanation, but they will not understand the specific nuance of any field, specifically in the area of IDD and mental illness and all that. It is really area that needs different sensitivity and different understanding and different background, and we do not have enough uh, providers or experts, expert interpreters or translators in this field as well. There's also lack of knowledge and awareness, as I mentioned, of available services and also that hesitancy and there is a gap in communication between those that need the services and their gatekeepers and trusted institutions and the service providers. So, like community-based organizations and providers and schools and faith leaders and faith communities are those that some of them have the information, some of them can advocate, but there's not a synergistic way of information available, and things are fragmented. And a lot of times, people that need the services fell in those gaps of communication. Next. And so I think I'm gonna have Manisha guide this, but in light of what we have seen, the NICInger team and Global Health and Education and Development have been working together and other partners to put together a toolkit that could identify communication gaps and other needs in different areas and the rest of the presentation will cover that, and then we will love to hear your insights of how this can be used and how we can improve it, and if you're using anything like it already.
Thank you, Marianne. So through numerous conversations with our community and advisory members, it became clear that there is a need for an accessible toolkit to address some of these challenges faced by our communities. And as Marian mentioned, many individuals shared that they come out of appointments feeling misunderstood or lack the knowledge to provide culturally competent care. And so this can hinder overall treatment quality. So we took this feedback and created a toolkit that the providers can give ahead of time to their clients, or the clients can take to their appointments to bridge this gap. And so the goal of the toolkit is to, again, bridge the communication gap, help build stronger relationships, establish trust, and increase overall treatment quality. Like I mentioned earlier, many individuals shared that they often feel unheard or come out in an appointment feeling disconnected, where their concerns are not fully addressed or cultural context is overlooked. So all of this, again, hinders treatment quality. And even when there is a translator present, many of the cultural nuances are often lost, which can, again, add to this disconnect. So the first section of the toolkit addresses this communication needs. And these are some of the important questions that we came up with to put in our toolkit. First, we ask if their first language is English, and if not, what it is, if they have interpreter services, and if they have a gender preference. And when they do have or utilize the service, what concerns they have, and if they feel like they're part of health decisions, and if not, how we can improve. Other methods of communication style, such as if we can use pictures or something to bridge that gap, and if they have any other communication needs. I will push this back to Dr. Dwally.
Thank you, Manisha. So yeah, in addition to the communication gap, there's also, as I mentioned, that cultural consideration that's necessary. And if we do not understand what the culture, how people seek treatment, or how they engage with healthcare providers and service providers, we might lose them even before we get them. So one thing that we have seen across the different cultures that we've worked with over the years is that with immigrant and refugee communities, family dynamics is critical. And even if someone is an adult, and even if they are autonomous to advocate for themselves, a lot of times their families are involved in their medical care and decision making. So understanding that from the get-go goes a long way. I already mentioned the stigma and the fact that a lot of people might even delay or miss the opportunity to be assessed for their needs due to that fear of labeling and community pressures, and might be being shunned and things like that in the community. So also understanding that and connecting people with other support services that can help them mitigate that is also important. Also, a lot of parents and families are overprotective because they don't understand how to support while also allowing autonomous development and service utilization of the individual with the IDD. I hear people saying that I feel suffocated. I feel like my parents or my family are not letting me do anything. And it's not that might not be their intention. It's just that really they don't know how to handle the situation. So also getting to the bottom of that in some cultures is important. And it all boils down to really not understanding the needs, not understanding the services that are available, not having the ability to navigate our complex health system. All that compounds the issue. And sometimes people will even call me, and their doctor will prescribe something, and they will call me and say, "Hey, the doctor gave me this. Should I take it?" And I'm like, "Wait, who am I to tell you if you can take it or not?" So they value relatives and community input quite a bit, sometimes over the professional. So if you see hesitance and things like that, saying if there's another doctor or another colleague that you know identifies with this culture, pulling in someone like that, or if you work with the community members or community organizations, involving them in that discussion might reduce some of the hesitancy and increase trust and adherence to the therapies that we're prescribing. So word of mouth is a key with immigrant and refugee communities, and also checking with relatives and community members that you know are in these fields are part of the norm. Next. And so we again have the toolkit portion that Manisha will explain.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this section specifically highlights cultural considerations in our toolkit, and these are some of the questions that we thought would bridge that gap and again help make the treatment quality better and build trust. So again, we ask if there is a gender preference for their provider. When making health decisions, do you speak with your family members or make decisions on your own? And what does that look like? Tell us a little bit about how you make that decision so we can see it when we're in the room with you. And then who comes to these appointments and how involved do you want them to be? Are there specific topics that you don't want discussed with a family member? And we believe all of this will help build trust and help, again, make the treatment quality a little bit better. I will, again, have Dr. Diwali explain this section as well.
All right, and another area we identified is religious consideration, and sometimes culture and religion go hand in hand. They influence one another. A lot of cultures are based some on their faith, but religion is really also one of the biggest factors of if we don't understand what someone believes about therapy and treatment, and if they have any dietary restrictions, and if we do not already preemptively are discussing those and accommodating where possible, then again, we lose people before we could help them. And I have multiple experience where at a rehab or a hospital, someone did not get the treatment they needed it because the food wasn't right or they weren't allowed to pray at the space they were in. And so these are key. Like a lot of religions have fasting, mandatory fasting. Right now in the Muslim faith, we're in Ramadan, I'm fasting, and that means not drinking or eating anything from sun up to sunset. And that could have implications for medication. So understanding that, something like that, and there's the Lent fasting in other faiths. So just understanding what could restrict someone's medication is important. Also, the diet I talked about, there's the pork. A lot of cultures don't or faiths don't eat porks, or they eat halal or kosher diets. There are alcohol restrictions, and I don't think this applies too much to this space because I don't think we will be prescribing alcohol for any reason. But meats and also some cultures are very that they're vegetarian or vegan, and that also there are questions about medication, or if someone is in a hospital or a rehab, what kind of foods are being provided. Prayers are important. A lot of communities don't believe you can be healed or just with medication or therapy. They need that spiritual element as well. And science also shows that, as you probably are aware of, spirituality is important, and a lot of cultures have scheduled, faiths, I should say, have scheduled prayers. that they undertake, and if the space they're in or the appointment they're getting interferes with that, that would jeopardize that service. So just also checking again if this conflicts with the prayer time, or if they have a preference for time, will go a long way as well. Yeah, so all these affect food and medication, and it's important to really understand them so that we can improve their adherence to treatment. Manisha?
Another section of our toolkit addresses this challenge, and then we ask specific questions so we can understand our clients and clients better. So we ask, do you have any religious holidays that may affect your appointment in your care? Are there specific times or days that you can't go to appointment because of said religion or prayer schedule? Are there medications or treatments that you can't use, or food and drinks that you can't eat because of your religion? Is there anything else we should know about your beliefs that will help us take care of you better? These are all important questions that we want to ask in our toolkit so we don't run into these challenges again. Another section of our toolkit is other personal needs. Is there anything else we missed? Any other accommodations that we might need to provide that will help us get to know you better? And then how can we make you feel more supported and valued, and how can we improve? And this is what the overall toolkit looks like. We have each sections talking about different needs and considerations in different contexts. And at the end, we will include a resources section in this toolkit. So if you have any community-based resources where diverse communities can utilize, because oftentimes, like Marian mentioned, they tend to trust their own communities and own professionals. So if you have those resources that we can include, that'd be really helpful. Dr. Jalali?
So yeah, it looks like we took longer than we wanted it to take with the presentation, but we do have those questions. The toolkit is not useful unless you guys feel you can use it. So we wanted to get your input, and if the time does not allow right now, we could mail, we'll ask Andrew and the team how they want to disseminate this. But we want to know if you use any of those questions in the toolkit already in your practice. Will this tool be helpful to you? How can we improve it, and how can we make it practical and easy for your practice? And how can the toolkit be incorporated into your practice? So, or anything else we missed. If we didn't ask a question that came up, we also want to discuss that. And we want to make this accessible, easy, and you know where you can incorporate, you know if it's feasible, and that's why we really presented, and that's why we wanted your feedback. And we have some resources, next slide, before we go into the discussion. Yeah, so as Manisha mentioned, if you have resources, please share with us. We listed few organizations that we know already work with mental health and disability, and there's the Down Syndrome Association. They have culturally adapted groups. RIMCO is Refugee Immigrant and Mental Health Coalition. It is a coalition of nonprofits and practitioners that came together, and we have host of resources and trainings, and we have a training coming up on April 23rd. I'm among the leadership of this coalition, and we have a 2.5, 3 hour long training that have multiple parts, and a CU certify has CU credits on April 23rd, and I will share the link with Andrew and the team to disseminate for registration if you want to take advantage of that. I am the executive director of Global Health Education and Development, and we have a lot of resources in different languages. And we closely work with Disability Ohio. They have clips in different topics in different languages, and they explain rights for families and things like that. And so, but this is still developing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for the presentation. We're right on time. So, Manisha, I would encourage if you're able to copy and paste those discussion questions in the chat for folks to ponder or respond to in the chat. We did have not questions, but a couple things came out from Justin, who would absolutely use this, mentioned that there's a series of great questions and really love that it's thorough but short. I agree with that. When you're thinking about intake, you want to collect some really specific information, but it covers some great topics and allows you to extract some information to, dig a little bit deeper through conversation. Rebecca mentions that some of these questions are in the intake form, but could add more of them based on the toolkit. So I like that, being able to adapt and modify existing protocols to be more expansive and to really take these important complex considerations under advisement while you're building rapport, especially with new patients or new clients. Justin, would you like Justin or Rebecca? I'll invite to see if there's anything else that you'd like to add. I know, Justin, you responded to that as well.
Yeah, I just thought, like Rebecca makes such a good point about some of those already being an intake. And I guess everybody's intake is maybe a little different, but I was just thinking like having it in this form, where, if Dr. Whitwer is going to cover for me one day, she can pop in there and read through this page really quick and just see what my clients, cultural needs are, communication needs are, and wouldn't have to dig through an entire intake. So I really liked that. I think that would be an easy form to add and reference throughout the client's care.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll invite Rebecca if she'd like to add anything to interject. Otherwise, Sarah in the chat also that it would be helpful to provide these toolkits to agencies that provide support to immigrant and refugee communities. So you had mentioned RIMCO. I'm assuming that there's a connection there, and that also I think is a great way to support self-advocacy, right, of clients where they can use this to fill out and bring to appointments with them. To develop some foundations to build that relationship as well. So great thought there. And Sarah, if you'd like to address anything else, feel free to interject. We do have a question that came through from Elizabeth. How can I begin to become a multilingual therapist to support clients with different primary languages? And this is, this is a tough case. I feel like, this is the $1 million question, right? I think in a recent meeting that I had with some colleagues, a lot of what they said came down to it's that initial building of trust and rapport. And I think, asking some of these key questions about your background, your family history, um, your home life, where you come from, how you identify is so critical to break that ice and build that trust. Manisha, Marion, anything that you'd like to add? What are some key tips?
Yeah, that's really a great question. And again, as Andrew said, it's the $1 million question. I wish we could all be multilingual practitioners. But yeah, it's not feasible for anyone to really know these comprehensive different languages. There's a lot of languages and we have a lot of different communities, but it's just really trust. If you can build that trust, that's the key. And getting those cultural, religion, communication, these preference issues that we don't usually touch on, getting those right away and making people comfortable goes a long way. And also, if you ever need an interpreter, just selecting more subject expert interpreters and not any interpreter is also key because a lot of what I didn't mention, also we didn't mention, is a lot of um, terms we use in English don't even exist in many languages, like for mental health and IDD and all that. it doesn't exist because there were no infrastructure and no systems for many of these countries. So even the people that are interpreting, unless they're studying in that field and intentionally look for the right terms, they won't be able to interpret appropriately. So yeah, I think that's my addition.
Yeah, thank you so much. A couple other hands raised here. Christine and then Andrea is on deck.
I understand you all can't really get these into so many of these languages. Have you ever tried, even trial, to use AI? Just ask because I know it's still so new, but I was curious, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Christine. I was going to ask too about, the use of software to support at least some establishment of that respect and rapport building, like a Google Translate website. Would either of you like to speak to the use of technology to at least break that ice, to show respect, to build trust, or other recommendations?
I think it's a useful tool. However, even with a physical person, it's really hard to get those nuances across because different cultures have different cultural nuances. So I really doubt a technology is going to address that and get the message across. Sometimes from personal experience, when I take my parents to appointments, even I struggle trying to explain what they are feeling. So I'm a little hesitant, but I think it is a helpful tool when you don't have other things. Dr. Whitworth?
Yeah, it will give you, I think AI is getting better. I remember 10 years ago or so, Google Translate was so terrible in different languages, especially languages that are not don't have the similar basis as the English. So like the Somali language, sometimes you think it goes backwards and it's sentence based and it's so long and it we used to make fun of the things that came out of Google Translate, but it's really getting better. And so you can do your own search with it, play with it, but it will not it will not replace the actual person that has the context and also know the area. So field specific is key, and that cultural context is really key. But AI, I think, will support to a degree at this point, especially with written translation rather than interpretation.
Yeah, thank you. This is so rich. I'm going to take a little bit of extra time here just for two more questions. Andrea, sorry, you unmuted and remuted yourself. It's Monday, so
I do that all the time. I'll be fast, not as fast, clearly, because I can't unmute. There's some great questions in the chat. I wanted to, Marianne taught me something really awesome the first time she talked. And she talked about like that idea of building trust starts from the very first person that the individual meets when they walk into your office. So I think that's the other piece with the communication toolkits and that, and having that as part of your atmosphere is thinking about from the moment someone walks in or schedules the appointment, having someone asking some of these questions or having that just goes, it's that first step in building that trust so that they may, be more willing to kind of keep coming. So I just wanted to kind of take that one step further, Marianne, because I think that point really stuck with me previously.
yeah, thanks. Another echo. Ashley in the chat also mentioned, just having a tool like this available for individuals and family members is so empowering and promotes self-advocacy to speak power to your identity. And Rebecca follows that up. Just even having this available on your website as a resource, the community even knowing that those are available can make them feel safer to engage with us. I think really advertising yourself as being inclusive, as being open to learning more about the clients that you're serving and being genuinely earnestly interested in learning how best to support them, based on all these complex considerations is very key. I really like that comment as well. Michelle mentions how important it is, not only between the client and the clinician to develop that long-term maintenance of the relationship, but finding ways to advocate for the same interpreter across therapy sessions can be so critical, right, to good outcomes because of that established relationship. Really good points here. One last question here, Michelle. I see you kind of followed up with a question in the chat. Would you like to speak to that and see if we can get a response? And then we'll move on.
I think I was just trying to clarify what the barriers were for regularly scheduling sessions. So I in healthcare systems that I've worked in, I see the same or similar barriers where there just aren't enough interpreters for a given area. I don't know if that was the barrier that you were encountering or if it was something else. So that's what I was trying to clarify.
I think that was Dr. Watts's question. Oh,
Mm,
they said difficulty with availability to driving homes. Yep, that makes sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. There is both. There's not enough interpreters, but also more importantly, there is not enough they don't need to be an expert, but people that have more knowledge in the area they're interpreting. So I have been in this space for almost 6, 7 years now. I'm a public health specialist and did nutrition and other things, but in the cross section of mental illness, substance use, IDD, all that is really new in a lot of community, and there's lack of terminology, and you can't just have someone that is a school liaison uh, do the same thing for you and get a meaningful session. So you just really have to look for those niche interpreters and translators in that area.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's where I feel like the um, building the relationship with, as a provider, building that relationship with the interpreter to help fill in gaps. In like, hey, I'm going to use this terminology. This means this. What does this translate to? Is there a translation? So you're right. A lot of times there aren't. And we're trying to use these really, niche vocabulary words that people are like, that doesn't translate. So I think for me, I found a lot of success in taking the time to build those relationships with the interpreters that I'm working with, which I think that's part of building a practice around cultural competency, is that you just know that you're going to have to do that and it's going to be time. But it'll be worth it in providing better care to the patients that you're working with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I used to say the only word in Somali for mental health is wali. We're getting a little bit better right now, but wali means crazy, and that's the only word we have for mental illness. So you can imagine how terrible that is.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to use a full sentence to explain one bipolar. You just have to go on and explain and identify the symptoms and characterize it just for people to understand. So
Well, yeah, this is so great. And I think even wrapping up here, Sarah even mentioned how it would be beneficial to hold trainings with interpreters, and someone else mentioned that just this session could be expanded into its own Echo series. So I think, this information has been so valuable. We want to thank you. We want to thank you both for taking the time to take those small steps, ever forward. And maybe we could hear you both say, how we express thanks or gratitude in your languages that or other languages that that you're familiar with. Would you mind? Could we hear that?
Yeah, in Nepali, you say dhanyavad. That means thank you.
In Somali is Mahat Sanid. In Arabic is Shukran. In Swahili is Asante Sana.
I am familiar with Asante Sana and
Asante
Swahili.
Sana, yes. Shukran is Arabic and Mahat Sanid is Somali.
Oh, that's so great. If we have any other multilingual, I'm always impressed by bilingual, but here we have multilingual experts here. If you're multilingual or bilingual and would like to express your thanks, or if you just like to express the thank you in your language in the chat to express our thanks, we would like to move into our case. But again, many thanks to our presenters today. And next up,